I often use two metaphors when I describe my courses. One, an electron microscope, and the other, galaxy probing telescope. The first course on the Jews of Renaissance Venice goes more toward the electron microscope. What I intend to do is subject the period of Renaissance Italy, Renaissance Venice in particular, to careful scrutiny. The Jews of Renaissance Venice are unique in many ways. If you will recall, England had expelled its Jews in 1290. France, a number of times starting in the 14th century. Spain, 1492. And so what do we have in Venice? We have an extraordinary heterogeneous population of Jews in the ghetto. We have, first of all, the first stratum of Italian Jews. Then we have German Jews, from whence we get the pronunciation ghetto, as opposed to something from gettare. And finally, we have, after the expulsion of Iberian Jews, a large contingent of conversos, that is, Jews who had converted to Christianity, and now they're back in a more hospitable environment. It doesn't last too long with the Inquisition. But we have this extraordinary layered society of Renaissance Jewry. Some of the characters that we'll be looking at, for example, Daniel Bomberg, famous for Hebrew publishing. We're going to look at Leone da Modena, a very famous Venetian rabbi, well known not only for his exegetical works, but because he was a notorious gambler. And so we'll be looking at gambling with, I don't think, a field trip to the Lido, but we'll be looking at gambling and games. Italian Jews were famous for that aspect, and I think that Homo Ludens is just a part of the course as anything else. And we're going to conclude the course with Sephardic cuisine. And so if you don't like the lectures, come for the food. I think that Venice is one of the exceptionally rare places where in a given month, the month of February, you have a chance to dress up legitimately twice. One for Carnevale, and another for the Jewish festival of Purim, which takes place this weekend. And this is a particularly good festival, I think, for students, in that not only do you get to dress up, but there's the obligation to get drunk. So, as I say, this legitimizes it, and you can do it in the name of religion. In the second course, I adopt a more broadly encompassing telescopic view of medieval Spain. And in this course, I examine really a rarity in the history of the world. A country, or at least an area in which you have Jews, Christians, and Muslims living together for the space of some 700 years. Only medieval Sicily can compete, but in terms of the wealth of intellectual activity, the medieval Iberian Peninsula is really quite extraordinary. And of course, a lot of the time, these 7 centuries, is spent fighting each other. But there are also extraordinary moments of cultural efflorescence in which Jews, Christians, and Muslims come together and produce exceptional intellectual enterprises. Much of the knowledge that Europe gained regarding Greek philosophy is through Arabic. The Muslims had Greek knowledge, but in Arabic. It was then up to the Jews as cultural intermediaries to translate from Arabic, but the Jews didn't know Latin. So you have Christians who didn't know Latin, and they would translate from the Spanish that the Jews had produced. And so through this somewhat convoluted series of steps, we have Aristotle coming to Paris. One of the particularly enjoyable parts of the course, I think, is the comparative approach that I'm going to take to love poetry. When people weren't killing each other, they were writing absolutely exquisite poetry in Arabic, Hebrew, and in Spanish, Catalan, and Galician Portuguese. The course ends on a somewhat somber note. Jews and Muslims are expelled from Spain, but there are high points as well. The refugees go on to other places, the Balkans, North Africa, Greece, and Venice, where new communities are begun and old traditions are continued. Thank you very much.